Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to an amazing day of Emunah and Bitachon. And, we're living in interesting times. A lot's going on in today's world. There's a lot of, in the world of technology and social media, we get inundated with images of what happens in the world so fast. We sometimes find out faster than relatives of those that were unfortunately affected by certain stories, and we see things, and whether the hostage is being released or unfortunately the terrible plane crash that happened last night over DC. It's like we get our mind gets overwhelmed. I always talk with the boys and we say that most of us, I shouldn't say most of us, but a lot of us don't have general social media. They'll have WhatsApp or texting, and they'll see a status and they'll notice a terrible tragedy, and then we'll go one or two, and then you start feeling bad for 30 seconds, a minute, depending how long the status is, and then the next one is a meme of a joke, and then it moves on to a sale of eggs. Instead of being $7, you could find it in this store for $3, and your mind gets almost like mashed potatoes. It's how do you absorb, how do you take in, and how do you spit out, and how do you live, and how do you take the moment? And it causes us, it's not just the statuses, but the world is at such a fast pace that it causes us not to live in the moment. It causes us to be so almost overwhelmed, in a sea of so much information, and good and bad and sad and tragic and happy, and hostages being released, but they're being released in a barbaric manner, and then there's so much. So how does a person who lives with Emunah and Bitachon, how does a person that lives in that sense of I have Emunah, I have Bitachon, how do we do that? And it's in general, in life in general, it's so much about what happens in our lives. It's when we deal with family and when we deal with people, you want to focus and be in the moment and talk to the person and live with the person and feel for the person, understand the person. But at the same time, there's so much going on in the world that our brains are trained almost. We're almost trained not to be in the zone, not to be in the moment. We spoke about our trip to Erev Shabbos. We were there, and one morning we woke up. I think it was Shabbos morning, and Baruch Hashem, no phones, no social media, nothing. It's Shabbos morning, and you walk out onto the street, you see the beautiful view, and it's beautiful weather, and you're just taking it in. You're oh, I wish I could just can this moment. So how does one do that in life, and how does one understand? How does one live with it? So first we have to understand the pasuk. There's a beautiful pasuk later in Devarim, in later parshas in Devarim. It says, "Atzur tamim pa'aloi." Kadosh Baruch Hu, Atzur is Rebbeinu Shalom. Atzur means a rock, but it means Rebbeinu Shalom. Tamim pa'aloi, his ways are whole. Ki chol derachav mishpat, all his ways are mishpat, which is judged properly. Kel emunah ve'ein aval. Kadosh Baruch Hu is kel emunah, meaning there's belief, there's intense belief. Ve'ein aval, he doesn't do something not right to a person. Tzaddik v'yashar. Kadosh Baruch Hu is called the tzaddik v'yashar. So I mentioned this much earlier on in the Emunah Shirim that I once heard from Rav Amnon Yitzchak. This was in right after 9/11. It's going back a number of years ago, right? Right after the terrorist attack of 9/11, the world was shaken up. And he mentioned the pasuk, and he says, you have to understand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ways are so complete. Kel emunah ve'ein. There's nothing that happens to you that's not supposed to. There's no piece of news that passes you by that's not supposed to pass you by. Everything is supposed to pass you by. Which means if you see something, if you hear something, you feel something, or you don't feel, all that is part of the emunah of understanding. That's what Hashem wants. Meaning the Nisayan now of Ikvis to the Mashiach, the Nisayan now of today's times is to live in that type of mindset, that things move so fast, and to work on ourselves, how to be in the moment. You understand? That's the test of Ikvis to the Mashiach. What I'm showing you from this pasuk is that don't think anything is by happenstance. You don't feel bad or feel happy or feel sad or move your emotions like that and like that and like that because just by chance. That's the way Hashem set up the world now in Ikvis and Mashiach. Just to help you understand a little bit more what it means, Ikvis and Mashiach, the times of Mashiach. We know, my Rebbe Tzemai Zilberg says, on a Friday afternoon, everyone is rushing the last hour before Shabbos, last 2 hours before Shabbos. It doesn't matter if Shabbos is 4 in the afternoon, 5, 6, 7. Everybody's okay, rush, get it. Did you turn on the oven? Did you shut the lights? Did you do? Right? We're always rushing as it gets close to Shabbos, and Shabbos comes its peace. So as it gets ready for Mashiach, the generations are like that as well. Tzaddikim teach us. The generations we're like Erev Shabbos, Friday afternoon, getting ready for the great Shabbos of Mashiach. And the whole world is rushing. Everything, information is rushing. People are rushing. People are out there. There's so much we're inundated with Torah. We're inundated with shiurim online. We're inundated with speeches. We're inundated with information. That's the way the world is because everything is coming out close to Shabbos of Mashiach. The whole world. People are being born and unfortunately there's tragedies and there's so much happening in the world because it's getting close to the great Shabbos. So once we understand all this, once we understand it's supposed to happen, that's the way the world is set up, that's the times we're living in, you have to take a step back. And you have to say, Hashem, I'm living with Emunah. I'm living with Hashem. My lifeline is understanding that Hashem is running all that. I'm not in charge of it. I'm not in charge of what's happening, what they're doing to the hostages. I'm not in charge of what happened when the plane crashes. I could feel bad. I could take it in. I could absorb it. But it's all Hashem. It's all the Emunah of the Rabbeinu Shalom. You have to stop and feel. You have to stop and take in the moment. You have to ask Hashem, Hashem, please allow me that peace of mind that I could feel. But when we don't, we have to understand that that's all part of Hashem's cheshbon. Not to beat ourselves up that we're not living it, we're not feeling it, we're not in there, we want more of it. It's great, but that shouldn't make us more mivulbal than we are. So one small piece of, advice, one small piece of an avodah that we could do. When we hold on to the lifeboat called Emunah, the lifeline called Emunah Bitachon, and we start looking at those images, we could say, Hashem, we could take a parak of Tehillim. You say, Hashem, please help them. Hashem, I understand this is not me, this is not my tzara, and it's not supposed to be, it's Klal Yisrael's tzara, and I feel for them. When I see something happy, Hashem, thank you so much. We're so happy they were released. But you have to keep moving. You have to move, because that's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to move to the next step. Hashem wants us to absorb it. Hashem gives us the koyach to do that. You all have the koyach, the power, to be able to live it, to be able to feel it, to be able to say, I am part of it. You have that koyach. That's Hashem put us in this generation because He gave us that koyach. Don't beat yourself up for it. Don't make the stresses worse than they are. Live it, feel it, move to the next step. And then understand that every single thing you know and don't know is all from Rabbeinu Shalom. That's Atzor Talmud Pali. Hashem should bless us with a day of peace of mind, Yishav Hadas, happiness. We should only hear good news. And should have a wonderful day full of Emunah and Bitachon. Thank you for listening.